Hello, everyone. Welcome. If you can all grab a cup of coffee or some juice and take a seat. We have a packed house tonight for this morning. We're so glad to have you all here. Welcome. I'm Catherine. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Family and Business. The IFOB is a nonprofit that helps family businesses succeed so they can pass it on to the next generation. We have over 35 programs this year, and all members and future members are welcome. And this, I have a calendar out front for you that has all our different programs. You can also check out our website on fambusiness.org. And the good news is that most of our educational programs and things is included in your membership. So I do it like Doritos. If you have 6 people, if you have 400 people, much how you want, they can all come to our programs, and we welcome walk-ins and future members and people as well. And right now it's a great time because we go on our calendar year and we're halfway through the year, so all of our programs are half off, so the membership is half off. And we do have a website, and we do have a directory and a listing so people can learn about you and your business and things as well. So today we're going back to our roots. When we do our programming, we do a survey, which I'm going to give to you after this program, because we really want to have programs that our members really want. And I joined the Institute 2 years ago, and one of the recurring themes from last year when we did the survey is please bring on succession and succession planning. So we are going to do a series of 3, because research by the White Horse Advisor shows that 96% of business owners agree that it's important to have an exit strategy, but yet only 13% have a plan that's current and written. So we're going to work on that today, and we're going to work on it in 3 different programs out front. I do have a postcard on our succession planning. It has the 3 programs. And we also have next generation programs as well. Hi, Chris. Chris is one of our next gens. So we that's going to be on October 20th, and we'll have that here too, and that's a program geared towards that. So I also have out front our Maine Family Business Awards. We had that on June 7th. We had a record 180 nominations this year, and we narrowed it to 31 semifinalists, 20 finalists, and kind of like the Oscars, and there were 7 winners. And we had 350 people come, and here is a great resource about the Institute and all these different family businesses. We have some winners in the room too from past years. So, so today, as I said, we're going back to our roots, and we're going to start this 3-part succession planning series. In this series, we discuss how a business should set itself up for a successful transition, including conflict, because there might be some conflict with y'all when you're trying to figure out how the future is going to go. And also, we're going to have finally a piece on a transition, but keeping it not as an outside sale, but keeping it within the family or as a co-op and an ESOP. We'll start today with Jane Hilburt-Davis, who is president of Key Resources, and she's a founder of the IFOB and is on the board. So Jane is very well known and does an excellent job. She'll do an integrated planning model for the family business. And then our next program is Wednesday, August 24th. It's called Awareness, Communication, and Conflict Resolution in Succession Planning, the Game of 10 played. And that's presented by Steve Barton. He used to own Barton's Flowers, and he has a company, Barton's and Associates. He's also on our board. And then we have Elizabeth Ruthie, who is the president of Elizabeth Ruthie Associates, and they are both graduates of the Gestalt International Study Center. And then our final program will be a series on Thursday, September 29th, is Succession Strategies. That's a panel discussion, and it's going to be on estate plans, including a family transition, a co-op, and an ESOP. And we'll have Steve Tenney, who's one of our sponsors and in the room today. He will be there. And then Jim Costello Jr. from Sun Media Group. They're the Lewiston Sun Journal, and they're based in Lewiston. Rob Brown, who's the director of the Business Ownership Solutions for the Cooperative Development Institute. with Suzanne Ward, who's the founder of Rock City Roasters and Rock City Cafe in Rockland. She's about to do a co-op. And then Jane Hilburt-Davis, who's vice president and senior ESOP client advisor for Spinnaker Trust, with Danielle Moody of Moody's Collision Centers. And that's kind of an interesting hybrid because they have an ESOP and they also have family ownership. So our programs would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. In a few minutes, I'd like to invite up Steve Tenney from Family Wealth Management Partners UBS, Sarah Maupin from Perkins and Thompson, and Allison Nason from Maine Biz to say a quick hello. We'd also like to thank Hudson University and Russell, who's working really hard. We have 6 people who are trying to remote in today to this program, so that's what he's working on. So if you have any questions about this facility, he's happy to help you afterwards. And we do value your feedback. That's how we came to this program today. So we are going to be doing door prizes. I see I only have a few cards in here. So we have Sea Dog tickets, we have Women to Watch, and we have gift certificates to Walter's Restaurant. So while you're all busy figuring out the survey, I'll bring this around and we'll give you an opportunity for some door prizes. I think I will invite Steve up. Get us started.
Good morning. I used to have a partner, Jay Evans, who used to say, I can't wait to hear what I have to say. We do a lot of work with succession planning and find that it's a very emotional process. It's imagine a jigsaw puzzle where you've got a 3-year-old son or a 3-year-old grandson that has thrown out the box top and thrown out the corner pieces. You've got 1,000 pieces on this table. You have no idea what it's supposed to look like. You have no idea where to start. It can be tough. It's an emotional process. I think if you approach it in a logical manner, you'll end up in a good place. And I think that Jane will do a wonderful job with helping you see how to go through this in a logical manner. So welcome and enjoy.
Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Maupin. I'm from the law firm Perkins Thompson in Portland. I am a shareholder and practicing attorney there. I just wanted to welcome everyone here this morning. Perkins Thompson is a business-oriented firm. We've been providing legal services to Maine family-owned businesses since 1871. We are very proud to sponsor this series and the work of the IFOB. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Again, as Kathy said, Allison Nason. I'm Director of Marketing and Operations at Maine Biz. And we have a very common phrase that echoes across the Maine Biz office, and that's hope is not a strategy. I think it really kind of aligns with today's program in that, at Maine Biz, we understand that effective planning and putting together targeted goals and sort of messages really kind of make an impact on what your outcome is for sort of the recipe of success. So I hope that you all find, or actually I'm confident that you'll find some key learnings today from this program and the continued series. And we're really pleased to be supporters and sponsors to the Institute for Family-Owned Business and businesses like you all. So I hope you enjoy your time here and enjoy the learnings that you take away. Do we have everyone in?
We have 3 people.
Excellent.
Thank you. And thank you.
How's the microphone? Can everybody hear me? Can you? Okay, great. Okay, good. So we have a couple people, as they said, online. We have technical things going on here, but I think we'll have a good meeting this morning. We have a lot to do. So what I want to some of you have seen this first slide. Can anyone identify this animal?
Weasel.
It's a meerkat. A meerkat, kind of a weasel, but a meerkat. I put it up there because meerkats live in clans. They are always scanning the horizon and the future, for what's out there. And they're very altruistic animals. They're known for their altruism for each other. They work together. So I always think that's a pretty good sample of what we think about when we think about families working together. So next, so let's look at today. First I want to show of hands. How many here are thinking about succession? Okay. How many are thinking about succession? How many are in the middle of succession? How many have already had a succession plan? They just want to have a tune-up. Okay? How many are not planning to retire ever? Okay. How many here are advisors, not family business? Okay. How many are family businesses who are here together with 2 or more in your business? 2 or more in the family business. Let me just see that show of hands again. That's great. Some people are wondering, are they together? Okay. Okay, we've started already. So here's the agenda. What we're going to cover is welcome everybody. And if it were a smaller group, I'd have you each go around and tell a little bit about yourselves. But if we did that, we'd be here until about noon today. So I'm going to go over some statistics and facts. Some people are new maybe to IFOB or thinking about becoming a member of IFOB, and these may be new to you or not. Then I'm going to introduce the integrated planning model, and then you have an assignment, and you're going to work on this for a few minutes individually, not together. Then we're going to come back and have a discussion. We will be ending at 10:30. So I'm going to try to keep real good track of time. Welcome everyone who has called in, who is on remote. How many do we have remote now? Look up there, you can see 3. Okay. And so I want this to be interactional, so if you have questions while I'm presenting, please raise your hand and ask the question. I'm supposed to repeat the question. If I forget to do that, remind me to do that. No break, bio breaks on your own. So if you have to go, take a break, but I'm not going to have a break during this. Okay, so you know this is the first in the series, as Catherine said. The next one's August 24th, and the one after that is September 29th. So what I want you all to remember, to begin with, is succession and succeed are all from the same Latin root. So what you do for one, you have to do for the other. So as you're planning to succeed as a company, you're also planning for succession. If you're planning for succession, you're planning to succeed. So you're really not wasting any time when you're doing succession planning or when you're planning to succeed. Okay, next. All right, so here's some quick statistics, and a lot of this comes from FFI.org, the Family Firm Institute. How many of you heard of that professional group? A few, yes. It's an international group, and the website is really a wealth of information. We know that family businesses are the economic backbone of the world. 80 to 90% of all businesses in the U.S. and globally are family-owned. They create 70 to 90% of the GDP. They employ 62% of the U.S. workforce. Family firm performance is greater when founding families maintain an ownership stake. Now, they may not be involved in the management, but they maintain an ownership stake. Family firms, young and old, outperform non-family firms. We know that. Yes, S&P 500, family firms outperform non-family firms. The ROA, or the return on assets, is greater in family firms. Next. Go ahead. You're not alone if you haven't started, and Catherine quoted a statistic of 13%. We have some sense that maybe 80% don't have succession plans. Management succession is the most important concern of family business leaders. That's probably one of the most frequent requests I get, is succession planning. Of primary importance is transferring not only wealth and business, but values. What do you think, I'll ask all of you, what do you think are some of the values that family businesses want to transfer on, as much as they want to transfer on economic and business? What are some of the values? Yep.
Integrity,
Integrity, yep.
vision, goals.
Vision and goals, what else?
Quality.
Quality,
Hard work.
hard work, right.
Care for employees.
Care for employees, yes. All of these. Values related to making sure their kids are responsible and making kids thinking about philanthropy and charity, and all of these that you have mentioned. They're as important, all of the studies show, as well as a transfer of ownership and management. Families own for an average of 78 years. So the average age of a family business is 78. Between 10 and 15% are now managed by non-family managers, and that's growing. More and more of the companies I see are thinking about having a non-family CEO or president. What do you think some of the reasons are for that?
Skill,
Pardon?
the skill level.
Skill level. Skill level. What else? Might be contemplation of non-family manager. Back there.
Maybe lack of interest.
Next generation is not interested. Maybe they're not skilled yet. Anything else?
Oh, I know, for us, it might get in the way of like keeping the vision and focus on what it is you want to do rather than bogged down with running the company,
Okay.
with the complications that go with it.
Complications would go with having a family member
With the business.
with the
It's
business.
like everything you have to do.
Sure. Sure. This is growing. I'm seeing more and more of this. The other thing is that often the next generation may have to do with skill, it may have to do with interest, but there's a gap between the younger generation and when the older generation is thinking about going out. And I know now non-family CEOs that are hiring as what we call gap people. They come in and they fill in that gap for a while. So they call themselves placeholders. So we'll hold this place for 10 years. I have a friend who's now in the 8th year of this 10-year placeholder, waiting for the next generation to be ready or be interested in stepping in. So, next. So the more challenges are CEOs who plan to retire in 5 years. 46% have not chosen the successor. That has at least declined, fortunately, from 2002. Almost a third have no plans to retire ever. 85% of those who have identified a successor say it will be a family member. Now, 34% say it's going to be a woman, it's going to be a daughter. That is growing in leaps and bounds. 20 years ago, it was about 2 or 3 or 4% said it was going to be a woman. Now it's up to 34 and it's growing. Nearly 1/3 have no estate plan beyond a will. Let me ask, how many here, if you feel like you can raise your hand, have an estate plan in addition to the will? Okay, we have We have a few here, a few. Only 55% have a good understanding of state taxes. So, I love this quote from Peter Drucker. The final test of greatness in a CEO is how well he, or she I would say, chooses a successor and whether he or she can step aside and let his successor run the company. That's a real challenge. Okay, next. So now let's look at the success factors in family businesses. These we know, I know from my anecdotal experience with clients over the years, but also research. More and more research is growing on family businesses that show these are success factors. One is succession and strategic planning, not only in the business, but in the family. And a lot of people will ask me, well, what does that have to do with the family? Think about your family strategic plan. Let's not think about the business right now, but think about your family. What's the strategic plan you have for your family? 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years, 10 years. Do you want your families, do you want the business to stay in the family? Do you want the family to not be in the business? What do you want for your family? What's your vision? And that's as important as the strategic plan for the business. And I always say do it early and often. Once a year, check in, what's the strategic plan?
Sorry. I think it's just.
She's getting remote in. Okay. The other two pieces that are important for success factors in family businesses are business governance and family governance. And for those of you who came, did anyone come to the family council workshop we had? Anyway, what's governance? Governance is establishing procedures, policies, monitoring these policies, enhancing prosperity and sustainability. It's creating a rational voice. So business governance is either a board of directors or a board of advisors. Most companies start with a board of advisors. That means 2 or 3 wise individuals you know that can meet with you as business owner on a maybe monthly, maybe annual basis. They can give wise, objective counsel. A lot of family businesses that I work with start with a board of advisors, and that morphs into a board of directors eventually. There's a difference. A board of directors has a fiduciary responsibility. We do know that family businesses that do well do have either a board of advisors or a board of directors. And I want to encourage all of you to think about getting a board of advisors up and running. The other piece is the family governance. This is equally important. Family governance means a forum of your family members, usually called family council or family forum, that meets on a regular basis, maybe quarterly, does not micromanage the business. It has nothing to do with micromanaging the business. It has a lot to do with strategic planning for the company, has a lot to do with educating the next generation, making a decision about where you want the family to go, which will relate to what you want the business to do. Family councils will often say, we feel like we want to go in a different direction as a family, for example. How many here have a family forum or family council? Let me ask, what's the experience of that? Is it positive or is it useful?
We call it our board of directors,
Okay.
which is
all right.
funny because really we should have, like you say, an outside board of directors, but it's a positive, I mean, yes, it's positive in terms of educating.
Sure.
I don't know if it's positive in terms of succession planning,
Okay.
which is what we would like it to be.
Yes, and that's where the succession plan can be started, absolutely. The other thing that a family council can do, and I always ask the families I work with first year, is to get family employment guidelines set up. And family employment guidelines, my website's down there. I have, there's a request form. If you would like a template from me of family employment guidelines, I'm happy to give them to you. And you start with those, take a look at them, and see if you'd like to tailor them to your own company. They can save a lot of aggravation and grief in the future. I always use this as an example. Suppose Aunt so-and-so calls and says, you're running a good business and I want my son to come and work for you because you're family. You need to do this, you're a family. You can say, well, we have family employment guidelines. We'll pull them up and see if it works for him or her. And so I really encourage all of you to get family employment guidelines established. And that's a thing that can come out of a family council and be approved by the family council. And it sets rules for how you hire family members. Okay, so the other thing that we know is about success for family businesses is entrepreneurial spirit. And think about in your family, do you have any people right now who are real entrepreneurs, who are real entrepreneurial bent to themselves? Really have good ideas, they're creative. Because what we do know that really does help succeeding generations in family businesses. How many of you have heard the old song, 30% make it to the second, 13 to the third, and 3 to the fourth? You'll hear that over and over and over. And I'm here to tell you that that is not, that those studies were old studies, and that's not the case. That there's a recent, that study was done on textile companies in the Midwest. Yes, company did, only 30% of the companies made it, the businesses made it to the next generation, but the family continued to survive. A lot of the companies I work with say, for example, decide to sell the company, but keep the money and maybe go into real estate or go into another field so that the family enterprise goes on and on and on. 78 years goes on and on and on. The business may change over time. That's where the entrepreneurial spirit in the next generation comes into play. So encourage that entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next. All right, so what's the oldest family business in the US? Anybody know?
Symbols.
What?
Drum symbols.
Yes, okay, everybody hear that? The Zildjian Company in Norwell, Mass, cymbals, drum cymbals. They started in 1623 in Constantinople. And they're still in operation, okay? In the world, the Hoshiansen Inn, established in 718. Now, these statistics come from a really good book called Centuries of Success by Bill O'Hara, and also Family Business Magazine. If you as a family business don't subscribe to Family Business Magazine, I say you should. Go online, Family Business Magazine. It's out of Philadelphia. It's really good, just practical art. Stories of people who have made it, who have not made it, who have learned from this, learned from that. And I would really recommend you do that. Okay, in Maine, what's the oldest? Anybody have an idea? Okay. Seaside Inn and Cottage is 1667, still in operation. So that's very, very old, as you can see. Okay, next. So
Yeah, where is it?
Good question.
I have visited them. Does anybody remember what town they're in? They're right on the ocean. The town they're on, yeah. I've been there, I've visited them. Catherine, do you know? Might be yours. Good
I think I need
question.
to.
You needed to join.
Yes, why don't you give them a call? No, I visited them once. It's really a cool little place. Okay, what hat are you wearing? How many have never seen these three circles? Never. How many have never seen these three circles? Put your hands up, don't be embarrassed. Okay, all right, good. Well, I'm always glad somebody is learning something here. That right now, I want you to write down the number you are. For those of you who've never seen this, these are sort of the building blocks of family business. Business circle, that means people who work in the business. Ownership circle, those who own, have shares. And family in the family. I, for example, am number 8. Those of you who are advisors are number 8. So look at this and write down right now what number you are. You think you are. Now write down, after succession, what number you want to be. After succession, what number do you want to be? Okay, anybody want to share anything about that? Anybody have any questions about that? Anybody have no idea what number they are? Do you have an idea? No, seriously. Comments? All right, so what I want you to remember is when you're speaking in your family council or forum or board of directors or with another family member or business, think about what hat you're wearing. Am I speaking right now as a mother? Or am I speaking as the president? Or as I'm speaking as a shareholder? An example of that, I was working with a company 2 weeks ago. I've been working with them for a while. One of the brothers is, he's not doing what he needs to do. He doesn't show up on time. He doesn't come to work. Employees cannot find him, can't reach him. He doesn't return. You get the picture. And in this family council meeting, his older brother, as president, said to him, if you don't change your behavior within the next month, you're out of the company. You're out. A younger brother then said to him, as your brother, I really feel sorry for you. I feel bad. I empathize. But as a shareholder, I have no patience. You need to be out of here. So you get the point here. Be clear. Always be clear what role you're coming from at any one point. So when you're thinking about succession, for example, think, am I speaking as owner now, or am I speaking as the dad or the mother or the brother or the cousin in the family circle, or am I speaking as someone in the business, the VP of sales and marketing, for example? It can help you get clearer and clearer and more rational and less emotional. Comments on that from anybody? Okay, next. All right, so here's a fun fact. I was asked 2 years ago to give a talk on brain science and succession planning, and because I'm very interested in the brain science, how it affects how we work. And I came across this, that information fatigue, that was added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 2009, but with exhausted brains, we are dumber. We're forgetful, we get distracted, we're mentally flighty. Once we've processed 30 to 40 emails in the morning, I think I'm the biggest culprit of that, of getting up, doing emails. We have really ruined our brain chemistry. when we are processing emails and doing that sort of low-level kind of stuff, we have high levels of noradrenaline and dopamine, and those are neurotransmitters. And when they get too high, we can't do any complex thinking or deeper thinking. And I think we've all experienced that. It becomes difficult to be creative. And with too much information overload, our PFC, our prefrontal cortex, which is where all organization or deeper thinking comes from, gets shut down. With too much information, our decisions are made less bold. And recency trumps quality, meaning our brain is, this comes out of when we were in the caves and always surveying what was out there and what was dangerous. I was going over this morning, and my computer was going beep, beep, with the emails coming in, and I kept getting distracted. So our brain is always easily distracted, rather than concentrating what we need to do. So succession planning is going to take deep work, creative thinking, real processing. That is one. Infomania can lower your IQ by twice as much as smoking pot. That was a study done for HP by the University of London. So remember that. If you get overloaded, you're twice as out of it as if you were smoking pot. So think about that. And I try to remind myself all the time. So we save our good brain work for those complicated decisions. Okay, next. Now let's talk about succession. It's not about one thing, it's about many things. And that's where you need that deeper level thinking. So save your brains for that. And that's one thing that family council or board of directors is a time for phones to be off. You come into a room, emails are shut off, and you really should do some complex, deeper thinking with each other. So what are the benefits? Well, achieves business and personal goals, preserves family stakeholder interests, facilitates retirement, controls how and when the incumbent exits, and I'll use the word incumbent right now, the person at the helm, ensures survival and growth of the business, reduces uncertainty, and manage strategically capital, estate, income, and income taxes. So it's not one thing, but it's another, okay? There's a guy a little disheveled in his t-shirt. Run down to records and find out how I ever got to be boss. Okay, next. All right, so here is the integrated planning model that I want you to keep in mind as you do your succession, thinking about it, or doing it, or going back and reviewing what you've done. That, again, not one thing but many. And that it includes the estate plan, personal financial lifestyle plan, management ownership succession plan, and the business plan. And they're all interrelated, all connected. You cannot do one without doing the other as you think about succession. Okay, next. Okay, so let's do those each specifically, those little blocks. An estate plan, that clearly spells out the wishes and the plans of the owners regarding the disposition of assets. Personal financial lifestyle plan, part of the plan that prepares for personal finances and desired lifestyle of the owners. That's a huge concern for owners, for the incumbent. How can I be secure and live the kind of life I want to live after I stop working in the business? In the business circle, I may still be an owner, hopefully I'll still be a member of the family. How can I keep my lifestyle that I want and be secure? Am I going to have to depend on my kids for that? Are my kids going to have to go into debt and buy me out? So a lot of complicated issues. And again, it's not, I always say, it's not your father's retirement, not your grandfather's retirement. People are not retiring in the same way anymore. 65, 75, even 85 is young, looks a lot younger these days than it did 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So there are a lot of people who may want to and may not want to move out of the business. The incumbents want to keep busy, keep working, have more fun. A management ownership plan. This plan clearly describes the policies and procedures for transfer of ownership and management. One of the big questions, a lot more frequent questions that a lot of my clients now are asking, especially when they get to the third generation, and that's often when it gets a lot more complicated. Let's say the second generation, everyone in the company got ownership. Every family member got ownership of the company. This may be a familiar story to you. A family I'm working with now had 4 people in the second generation. They all got equal ownership. The company has grown successful. The third generation now has 13 people. They are saying they all can't have ownership. They can't afford to keep them all in the company. Because those 13, probably all of them are going to have kids. So that's becoming a large issue. What do we do about that? What do we do about not just the transfer of leadership, the transfer of ownership? So understand, there's no easy answers, but understand that is a very common question and challenge that family businesses are struggling with now. And it gets especially clear when it's sort of third generation. There are a lot of options. The better a company is doing, the more options you have. That's where it comes to families sitting together and saying, what's the greater good here? What do we want to accomplish? And I am all for transparency and bringing all the critical family members together and getting them to look at what the challenges are together. It gets buy-in and it saves a lot of grief going forward. And then the business plan spells out the long-range vision for the company, its objectives, and plans to accomplish it. Any comments or questions on this? That you can see, if you go back, can you go back one, please? You can see where a business plan affects the management ownership. Let's say in the business, you want to keep your company going exactly the route it's going. It's successful, it's growing at the right speed, it's supporting the family, got a good reputation. You want to keep it pretty steady. Conventional wisdom says then you choose someone in the company who has been very steady, very smart, knows it all, and can keep it going and saying that. Let's say you are saying, we've got to go, we've got to do something else. We've got to diversify. We've got to do absolutely something different. Then, from that business plan, you'll be looking probably for a different leader. Either some non-family or someone who brings an entrepreneurial spirit to your company. So you can see where a business plan will affect the management ownership. How might the personal financial lifestyle plan of the incumbent affect either of those? How might that?
I think whether the company can afford, as the owner, if you transfer it to the next generation, can they afford to keep your lifestyle?
Did everybody hear that? So it affects, can you afford, can the company afford to support the incumbent who's founded the company, who's brought the company to where it is, to afford his or her lifestyle? So that affects here and here. And can the kids buy the owner out? Or what do we have to do? Now the panel discussion we'll go to in September will really address a lot of these issues. Okay, let's go to next slide. Next one, yeah. All right, here's another fun fact. Success in meetings influence our brain functioning. Small agreements, if we have small agreements with people, we get a small agreement today, it raises our levels of what's called oxytocin. That's the tend and befriend hormone, neurotransmitter in our brain. So small agreements makes us feel better, makes us feel more collaborative. So what we do know, and again, there's research on this, that families who are going to survive and be happy together, couples who probably won't get divorced, 5 positive interactions to 1 negative over the course of, say, a month or a year. That's what's needed in families. 5 positive interactions to 1 negative. In companies, in work teams, in strategic planning teams, you need 3 positive interactions to 1 negative. So if you're having a meeting, a board meeting, a family council meeting, a team meeting, an executive managers meeting, make sure you have 3 positive interactions to 1 negative. Figure that out. Figure out how to do that. Because that will help you get the work done. Create agreements, create plans. Okay. So the other thing we need to do is to understand the difference between hard and soft issues. And you have to address both hard and soft in family businesses. It's more important in family businesses than it is anywhere else. One without the other doesn't work. So process issues are soft issues. They answer the question how. How is something done? Technical issues, sometimes called hard, must be considered. They answer what. So what's your estate plan? But how did you get it done? What's your succession plan? How did you get it done? A succession plan with no transparency, no buy-in, no collaboration, is probably not going to work eventually. So maybe the succession plan is great, but if the way you've done it has not gotten buy-in, has not been transparent, has not been collaborative, has not involved the critical family members, you're probably not going to get buy-in. I've seen some great estate plans that were done without any family knowledge that have been great estate plans, but over time they have not worked. They haven't been buy-in, the next generation has no clue what was done, and they just have not been involved. So let's look at some soft issues. Steve.
Jane, clearly there's a difference between estate planning and the business succession planning.
Right.
When it comes to estate planning, and they're related, when it comes to the estate planning, to what extent should there be collaboration with the next generation? Or should the senior family members who are putting the estate plan together, should they just put it together in a thoughtful way and then report to the next generation?
Sure.
Should they get input or not, or does it depend on the family?
Did everybody hear that question? Okay. I am always big on collaboration and transparency, and also big on there's a hierarchy in the family. And I do believe that the incumbent, let's say, the person who's doing the estate plan, has to get his or her act together first. So there's a lot of thinking on that, and getting a lot of input from the next generation. But being clear that that estate plan is his or her decision. I'll get input. I want to hear what you all have to say, and then I want you to hear why I did what I did. So I think it's a balance. It's a balance of getting information, getting feedback from the next generation, taking that into consideration, making the plan, reporting back, and then getting feedback again. So it's really iterative, I do believe. It's iterative, it's just have a discussion, and people really understand what that was about, because you may have to, again, fair is not always equal. So a lot of times, what you've done needs explanation. And that explanation, you can get a buy-in from the next generation. The next generation also learns from that. And that's where I think trust is really important, so that you can build trust in meetings with the family together. I hope that answers your question. It's not either or, it's really a combination. Okay, let's look at what some of the soft issues are. Next. Again, that answers how something's done. So Steve was asking about how it's done, not what it's done. Not what is done, but how something is done. So here are some soft issues: providing family and other key stakeholders with information, knowledge, resources that will help avoid difficult situations. Going through the process while building family and employee harmony. This is about succession, and it's also about succeeding. Getting buy-in from the stakeholders through a forum of open communications. Helping everyone deal with the issues objectively and rationally. Educating everyone regarding the rights, responsibilities, risks of owners, family, and management. I've seen some wonderful estate plans, wonderful wills, but I have seen then the process of how they get accomplished and done fall apart. Okay, let's look at the hard issues. That answers the what. So always be keeping this in mind. This is what I'm doing, how am I doing it? How am I paying attention to getting buy-in? The what is full and complete understanding of the financial picture. So think about that. What's your financial picture? Do you have a complete one? Dealing with tax implications of an exit transition strategy. You're going to hear a lot about this in the September panel. Transferring ownership, possibly liquidating stock, scheduling valuation of the company, managing your integrated planning model. Now, these appear complicated, but with a good team of professionals, they can be dealt with relatively easily. Has to start with what the vision, though, is for your company and for your family first. I had a client who once said, we'll do what we need to do. We'll figure it out, and then we'll get it lawyerized. Keep that in mind. This is your game. You want to have good professionals involved. This starts with you. Okay, so comments? Questions? Okay. Now, let's look at the succession planning process. One of the things I always say is always look at the process first and then the people. I hate it when someone comes to me and says, okay, we want so-and-so to be the next person, leader. I'll say, just stop right now. Let's look at what the process is first. And maybe he or she will be the next. But first, look at what the process is. So begin to think, don't think people, don't think who it's going to be. Think about what should be the process for developing your succession. And I'm working with a family right now. They have the leader picked. I think she is a very good person, but we're still working on, say, the process. We're going to have a small search committee. It's not a huge company, but we'll have a small search committee. They will develop the criteria, and then first they will have said, this is where we want the company to go. And if she turns out to be the best person, it's also good for her too, because she can say, I was chosen in the right way. Sometimes the next generation leaders that were just picked by the incumbent, and it used to be in the past the oldest son, but they don't have much credibility. You don't have much credibility when they begin to take over. So if the process is robust and sturdy, they will have credibility. Okay, so first, a complete assessment. And I'm gonna pass these out, and you're gonna assess right now today. But a complete, like a feasibility study. Where are we going? What's needed? What are the challenges? Where are we really not having done our homework? What's the direction of the company? What outside help is needed? Who do we need on our succession planning team? Then developing the succession process, implementing it, and reviewing it regularly. Usually a succession process starts in the board with the incumbent or starts with the family council. Usually the board or the family council initiates it. Often, even if it's a small company, you might have a small search committee, even 2 people saying, okay, this is where we want the company to go, these are the criteria for the people we want to lead. And then again, think about the integrated planning model. This is what the incumbent needs for his or her personal lifestyle. You know, maybe it's selling the company, maybe it's transferring, maybe it's ESOPs, and you'll get a lot of those options in September. Okay, let me stop here and say comments, questions, and then I'm going to give you all an assignment. A few minutes. Comments? Yes.
I have a question. Should you recommend that the executor of the will be a family member, or do you recommend that it be family advisors?
I think it depends on, first of all, if things are fairly non-complicated and everyone agrees and everyone's okay with a family member being an executive, I think that's okay. If it's complicated, there are conflicts involved, it is confusing, and that people don't buy into that. Again, I think it can't be a surprise, then I think you need non-family. Any of your advisors want to comment on that?
I would say it's also up to the family member themselves. They may not be interested in being an executor. Maybe that's going to create too much angst between family members, so they don't want to deal with that and break the family apart more than bring them together. So I think it's kind of up to them as well.
That's a great example of the question of what you should do and how you do it. So it depends. Again, it depends. But I think it really could be a discussion among critical family members.
When you mentioned earlier regarding the board of advisors, is that with small companies, is that something that's a paid position, or is that just seeking out professionals that you would have as your circle of advisors? Or is it friends that have skills that you might need?
It is a paid position, I think even for small companies at a certain stage. I mean, you have to decide, okay, we're ready for that. I have a company right now that's relatively small, has 2 on their quote board of advisors. And it is a paid position. The board of advisors usually consults to the owners of the company, usually. Often, as the company grows, then that board may morph into a board of directors, which is fiduciary responsibility, paid. More difficult to get people on your board of directors because it is a legal entity. But I'd advise any of you to start with a board of advisors. It can be friends. It's usually wise people that have had experience, are non-competitors, that you feel you could sit down with annually, monthly, quarterly, and get advice and just toss around some ideas. One of the families I'm working with, he has a board of advisors. He's right now picked one from the advisory board to join his board of directors, which is just family and this one. It's a woman. But he calls the board of advisors in when he has some difficulties with his sons.
You typically meet together, and how do you assess how much you would pay them to do something, just whatever the issues are?
paid, they get paid per meeting usually. There's a pretty standard range. And
What is it? What's the range?
It really varies from like 200 a meeting to people come from all around, a lot more than that. But
So
I think-
what's the upper? 200 or what?
I don't know what the upper range is. I've had ones that are charging 20,000 for the year, for example. That's expenses too, but I think that's about the range.
Does the board meet, the advisors meet together at once, or do you deal with
Yes,
something?
yes, the board of advisors, it's 2 people, and they usually have a yearly schedule. It's structured, it's formalized. We're gonna meet by quarterly, for example, we're gonna meet twice a year. And we're gonna meet, usually it's a half day with lunch included. And we're really gonna look at the numbers, we're gonna look at where you're going, we're gonna look at what's going to be done, we're gonna look at what you bring questions to them. It can be very productive depending on the preparation you put into this.
In your family council example, is your best recommendation, or is it done differently on a case-by-case basis, an internal or an external advisor as to actually structuring the meetings, or I should say moderator, in terms of, is the family moderating itself, or is it an externality?
My recommendation is you start with a facilitator, depending on the complications, that facilitator weans him or herself away and hopefully get you up and running your own family councils. Depending on the complications, depending on the size, depending on what's going on. But if you bring in a facilitator, you should really work at goal of getting rid of that facilitator eventually. And that's always what I say. My goal is to be out of here. Any other?
There was a question earlier about who the executor should be. I'd suggest that if your plan is as airtight as possible and well-defined, then the role of executor is more a functionary, if you will. There's less room for judgment. Where there's more room for judgment, for example, in being a trustee ongoing, that's where someone from the outside becomes more important, especially if the family situation is a little complicated.
Sure, yeah, I agree. We did have, Catherine, was it about a year and a half ago, we had a workshop on family governance and business governance. And Mike Brunel did the business governance. He talked about he's on a lot of board of advisors. He's an advisor on a lot of board. And I ran one of the family councils. And, maybe that's something we could do again, a short one. If people want to understand more about board of advisors, board of directors, and family councils.
So if there is an interest on that one, I can please make a note.
Okay, we'll put that next one. Any other comments or questions now? Okay, I'm going to pass these out. So let's take, what time is it? Okay. Let's take 15 to 20 minutes. You're going to do these alone. If you do one, and then we're going to hand these out. Okay, this is really the beginning of what I would say is your feasibility study, your assessment of where you are. And do it on your own. Don't discuss it with anybody, especially another family member. And there are 2 pages. And the ratings here, and again, first number that comes to mind, don't overthink it, because usually the first number that comes to our mind is the most authentic one, the real one. So These are challenges. So what we're looking for is where your challenges are right now in terms of planning for your succession plan. So at the bottom of page 2 are the ratings. If you put an O down, that means you're okay. Oh, Catherine, are there any more?
Oh.
2 over there, 3 over there. If you put an O down, that means everybody have one? We're in good shape, we're satisfied. If you put a 1 down, that means it's a small challenge, it's manageable, we're pretty confident that's not going to be an issue. If you put a 2 down, you say that's medium challenge, not sure, I need more resources, it's doable, it'll take work and time, but I'm cautiously optimistic. And number 3 is this is a large challenge for us. Haven't begun, or we've begun, and we have many roadblocks. Concerned, worried, or egads. So do this quickly. And for example, here are the individual issues. Successor is not identified. So let's say you don't have a successor and you're really worried about that. You put a what number if you're very worried? 3. If you're okay, you've got the successor, you've done the process right, it'd be a 0 and okay. So do this on your own, and again, first number that comes to mind, and then what we're going to do is come together in 15 minutes and have a discussion of this. Questions, comments? And as you're doing this, if you think, uh-oh, this is the 3rd page, you can write down, hey, this is something we need to work on. Okay, 15 minutes.
I have one last question on the.
Yeah.
Before 1, if you're not concerned, you just put okay or 0?
0, it's an okay, O for okay. If you're not concerned, put okay, O.
Another form, I apologize.
Oh, another form.
We have one right now.
Okay, you got one?
Thank you.
All right. Timer on. I would say for advisors, do it for, say, choose a client you have in mind and do it for a client that you're thinking about, just as practice.
Was the previous
One before that.
She came up to
Okay, so couple of things. I think some people may have to leave a little early, so I want to give you all homework when you leave here. One is I want you to do a fire drill. gather your family members together, be they in the family only or of ownership and business, and have a fire drill. And just say, okay, whoever the incumbent or incumbents are, they have just been hit by a bus and they're no longer with us. What are we gonna do? So do a fire drill. Challenge yourself. What?
Panic.
Panic. In addition to panicking, then what do you do? And come out with that, what I call fire drill or crisis plan. 1 page. Here's what we're gonna do. We talk to the bank, we have someone do PR, the company's gonna keep going.
It's hard to hear you back
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry, I didn't turn my mic on. Thank you. I left it on while I was having a little conversation up here. So what I said was I want assignments. Catherine, did you have something?
I was just making sure we were back on.
Okay, all right. 2 assignments, homework. 1, have a fire drill. Pull the critical players together, whoever they are, and just imagine that the people at the top, the incumbent, president, owner, have just been hit by the beer truck, and they're no longer on this earth. And it's happened suddenly. So we have succession that's planned over time, and we have succession fire drill crisis plan. What if this happened right now? So you want to think about, where the important papers are, who might be the people that speak to the public, speak to the employees. We're going to continue on. This is a sad time, but we are going to continue. And this is the person that we're going to call. What are the advisors that know what's going on? Who would you contact? So really push yourselves a bit to think about that, because that can sometimes stimulate some thinking for a long-term, carefully thought-through process of succession. And then the second thing I want you to do is to take these sheets, which I want to discuss, but to take these sheets and sit down with family members and say, these are the things we really need to work on. Especially for those of you who are 2 or more family members here today. I'd be curious to hear from you all how different they are. Look at where the similarities are in these sheets and look at where the differences are. And then have that discussion. What we don't say and what is not discussed is much more powerful than what is discussed. So continue to think about that. What I don't talk about with the next generation is a lot scarier and a lot more powerful than what we really talk about. And when you talk about things, make sure first you have a couple of things done. When you have ground rules, everybody, one person talks at a time. Before you start any discussion about a complicated issue, have a ground rule for how it's going to be settled. What are the ways to settle? All right. Today we're going to talk about family employment guidelines as an example. And as an example, one person will say, no one in the family can work unless they have a college degree. Another person says, no, I don't like that at all. That's crazy. Before you get into that, say, how are we going to decide this? Is it going to be by majority rule? Is it going to be by consensus? Is it going to be flip of a coin? Is it going to be we'll bring in an expert? But always have first how we're going to settle this. Because once you decide that, then everybody can relax. There's a bit of structure there. Okay, I don't have to fight to the end to this. I know how we're going to decide. Most of the families I work with say we want to do it by consensus. Consensus is really hard. If you can't get consensus, then we're going to put it to a vote. So never start a hard decision, hard discussion until you have a way of settling it. Okay, so those are your 2 homework pieces. Fire drill and meet together with family members and look at this sheet. If any of you want additional sheets, Catherine, you could send them.
Yeah.
let Catherine know she can send you these sheets. Okay, let's talk about this. Where did you find most of the challenges? And anything else you want to talk about? Any other questions you have? Where were most of the challenges? All right, let me start another way.
Taxes.
What did you have okays on?
Taxes are a huge problem.
Taxes?
Right, depending on if the company's worth 50 million, 100 million, 200 million. The income taxes are a huge problem in the state of Maine.
Okay, tax,
That's a huge word.
okay. So did you have a 1, 2, or 3 on them,
I
tax?
had a 3 on taxes.
3 on taxes, okay. All right. Others, there was one over here.
Retirement plans of incumbent, incomplete, or resisted.
So incomplete, and would you have 1, 2, or 3 on that?
3.
Are you the incumbent?
No.
Okay. Yes, that often is a challenge. How many others have that as a challenge, the incumbent resistant? Okay. Okay,
Incumbents, divorce, remarriage, or new children.
okay. Yeah, that is often an issue. Do you want to talk any more about that, or if you don't want to share any more, that's
I'm an advisor, so I see
okay.
this.
Okay.
And it sometimes is addressed, and a lot of times not. And it needs to be addressed.
Okay. Yeah, we often talk about the 3 Ds, divorce, disability, and death, cause a lot of challenges. And is it about, quote, stepchildren?
That is one of the scenarios, or a myriad of scenarios, but you really need to think about, premarital agreements,
Sure.
other pieces to mitigate.
Yep. That's an interesting question. How many here have prenup agreements or have insisted on them in the family? Okay, more and more the families that I'm working with are now, and again, coming out of family council saying, we now expect the next generation who get married to have a prenup. And so it's now a policy rather than each person taking it personally. Oh, you make me do that because you don't like the person I married. It's a policy now. Okay, other 3s on here. Taxes, divorce, incumbent resistant. Other 3s on your,
The process factor of preventing challenging succession, that whole section for me is pretty much mostly 3s. I wonder who's gonna do what I do, who's best suited in my family to take over my responsibility, because I wear all the hats.
okay. So you need to be starting working on that then, don't you?
And I truly am.
Are you?
I am.
So it's still a challenge.
Oh, yeah, it
Good
is,
for
yeah,
you.
I mean, it's not gonna be finalized until it's finalized.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm working towards it.
Good, that's great. I mean, it's good you're working on it, but it is a challenge. And most of the process factors down there, you said, please.
Yeah, most.
Okay, so you see the difference too. There are the processes, the relationship, the individual, and then there's the financial. And then the big picture. Where's the industry going? Other 3s here. Okay, 2s.
I was just gonna say a 3 for us would be a successor being identified.
Okay.
Which is a big one, but we have a number of family members involved in the business and some who aren't, and no one has stepped up to say they're interested, and I think the incumbents are nervous about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about that a lot.
I don't blame them, yeah. So what's your suggestions to her for choosing the successor? She said the successor hasn't been identified yet, and none have stepped up to the plate. Right? So I get that? What's your suggestion?
Yeah, person.
A gap person, place card?
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Pardon?
That sounds complex but interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think certainly have to be clear with all parties if you're doing something like that. I guess.
Yes, absolutely. That's the only way it works, is someone gets hired as a place card. And there, a lot of people now that are doing that are members of other family businesses that I've seen, that understand it and want that job and don't want it for forever. And
Maybe
don't-
just want to work another 10 years or.
Exactly, yep, that's right, yeah.
Defining that timeline.
And defining the timeline, so getting someone who really, and there's an agreement there.
Which will help decide whether or not a gap person is necessary.
Yes, yeah, exactly, and that's a good way of thinking about it, backing into it. Do we really need a gap person? How long will that be? There was a comment back there?
Another option, what about a key employee that has been working with in the business for a while and knows the family really well? And the family works really well with them and trusts them, and the key is though, do they have the skill set to take on that responsibility in this position? But that might, be another possibility, because I think in this whole process, we've been talking a lot about the incumbent, working with other family members. Another, key component I think that you need to look at are your employees. Because, every business owner knows that their employees play a huge role in their success. And so you have to make sure your employees are on board with the successor, with the person coming on. But maybe if the family members don't want to take over and step in that role, maybe there's an employee there.
Sure, there's a group, I was thinking at the FFI meetings, the annual meetings often, there's a group, what we call the NFMs, the non-family managers, who get together and talk about what are the issues that we are facing, and what do we need to deal with, and the benefits and the risks of working in family businesses. Other twos, I was asking about how many are you're pretty cautiously optimistic. Twos on your sheet. Twos or threes. Yeah.
I see quite often too much attachment to the physical property. I built it, therefore it's mine. They're not really looking at the family business as an asset, saying, right, where are we at this particular juncture? What's the estate worth?
Mm-hmm.
And, will the person pass over the reins? In many cases, I will, and that process can go on and on and on.
Sure.
So they said, well, we heard this 3 years ago. We're still right back in the same box. He's never gonna retire. So, what am I doing with my life?
Sure.
Quite often happens.
Attachment to the business or the physical property and or. Yep.
So having the appraisal or having someone come in on the outside and do where are we today type format gives people a new navigational reference point to where we're headed. You do that not all the time, but occasionally you would give everybody the sense of, okay, we're making progress or not making progress, and how do we get to that particular goal?
Yep. Yeah, a lot of family businesses resist appraisals or valuations, and they are important to have. Other comments on this? Sharon?
Well, the conflict, rivalries, competition among family members is something that comes out, that's why I'm brought in sometimes, but that sort of, you may have a process that seems very clearly defined, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on below the surface that makes it really confusing as to why things aren't actually happening. So, I have a client that I'm working with that is very organized, and he's setting up his succession plan, and he's got a lot of things in place, but then there are other players in the family who aren't even necessarily involved, or they might be passive owner who are not on board, or they won't get it. It's just really confusing to this individual, and it also causes him not to be able to take action. So what we have to know as advisors is that there's the emotional part of things is what, you may have a very controlled process, but the emotional part takes that away. So you have to be kind of understanding and skilled, and it may be something very simple, that somebody just doesn't feel like their opinion has been heard or valued. It may feel that, they're being asked to sell some shares, and that separation from the tribe is, so deeply felt that that they're gonna fight against it.
Yep.
So
That's the other piece of that. The soft piece has to go with the hard piece. It has to be in sync. Other comments about this? Other challenges that you have? Did you have any surprises when you were doing this, or did anything come clear to you? What were the okays? How many had okays, and what were they? I'm curious as to where you already are pretty well on your way. What were some okays? Yeah.
The successors are identified.
Successes, all right, so that's pretty okay right now for you. Okay, and you talked about the incumbent. So how many here are incumbents? Okay, incumbents. Put your hands up again. I just want to see how many. Okay, how many are the next generation? Okay. Where is the energy coming from for the succession plan? Is it from the incumbents or from the next generation?
Incumbents.
Incumbent? The incumbent, okay.
Next generation.
Next generation, how many, okay, others? Where's it coming from? How many find the energy coming from the incumbent to get this succession plan? Okay, and how many find it's coming from the successor? Oh, both, that's perfect, that's perfect. Okay, all right. That's very interesting that it's mostly coming from the successor here. Because what I usually experience is mostly coming from the incumbent. So that, I think, is the good news, that the successor is really pushing it. Okay, where have you found that you're going to start? What's the next steps? You're looking at this, you're looking at the work you have to do. Now I want to know, what is your next step in the succession planning?
The August meeting.
August meeting, okay.
Is that a unanimous? We'll get a bigger room.
That's good. So that is on the relationship issues, right?
Yes. Just the planning.
Oh, just
the
like, you don't know what it's about, but you're gonna go.
It's about communication.
Another way of just postponing it, right? Okay, just postpone. Yes, next steps. He's gonna postpone until he can't postpone any longer. Go ahead.
We've met with an attorney.
Okay,
As a
that's a
first
start.
As a first start, beginning. The next thing we've done is we've begun an assessment of the company to evaluate
Good.
the worth of it.
Yep.
As it relates to sales. And then we can make the decision if this is something that we can purchase, related to taxes in Maine, all
The
that kind of
next
stuff.
generation.
The next generation.
Purchase from
And
the incumbent.
we're in a position anyway where it's my brother and I, and we feel we'll probably have to put a package together and present an offer. rather than the opposite of them saying, this is what we have and this is what we like. We almost have to make this the first step.
Okay.
Probably because they very much are still excited about the company and don't necessarily have any other, I won't call it retirement. As I get older, there's no retirement. You just do something else. So they don't really have anything else to do or haven't chosen to do anything else. So there's no motivation there. So.
Okay, so this is a great example. You're gonna make them an offer you hope they can't refuse.
We're gonna look at everything fairly and try to lay it out so that
Okay.
it's an offer that we can sustain the company, make a profit, and be able to pay for it. Yes.
This, in some ways, is almost a textbook case. You can see that with the next, it's starting from the next generation. They're doing the steps, they've got an attorney, they're doing an appraisal, they're gonna make the incumbents an offer. And hopefully it will be appealing to them. But you're also saying the incumbents don't really have what I have a friend called an encore career, a next career. So you'll do it step by step and have discussions and hopefully it will work.
Yeah, hopefully we will, and hopefully the price is such that we can purchase
You
it.
can
And
afford
if
it.
the numbers don't work, it's unfortunate. You have to just let them do what they want to do.
Sure. Anybody have any suggestions for him?
How old are
How old are they?
Yeah.
70 and 74.
You said, ooh, what does that mean?
Well,
that means that they should, I would assume they'd be thinking about retirement.
Yeah, one would.
So
But you know, they're in fantastic shape mentally as well. And
you can
so-
get him on your advisory board.
That's right. And that's the other three. That's the other three I had actually. So we don't have that.
Yes.
And, but is financially, is that really gonna make a big deal to them? Are they gonna care about money?
They're all set.
Yeah, exactly, so.
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
make any
more of,
difference.
it's more of
It's just more of what they already
something to
have.
do and it's who they are.
Yeah.
They have been there for ever, since children.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
and we're,
So you've gotta find a way to keep them involved and get them to, and I bet it's not money, so.
You know, I think that's a really good point, and I see that more and more. And often it's, functioning as a goodwill ambassador, or, maybe looking at some other thoughts of where the company can go. But making sure that their role, or his role, or her role, whoever it is clearly defined. Because that's when you get into real problems, when the incumbent either gets bought out but still is in the company and has no particular role. So make sure you get that, you agree on that. It's very clear.
It's an interesting point because I feel that, at least in my example, my father, he gets a lot of self-fulfillment and also has a lot of stimulation from his career. And if he ever did not have that, I don't know what you do. I can see him having, quote unquote, you hear people having a hand, in the affairs of some portion. I think of when I worked in the legal field briefly, there was a gentleman who was 85 years old and he would come in 2 days a week. And he had no knowledge of computers or cell phones or anything, but he would come in and he would do third-party reviews for all the litigators. And, it was a sense of purpose, and he would make his tea and he would come to the office. But, I think of that example. But I think that's part of the difficulty in it. And also, it's interesting, I just mentioned it, just thinking out loud, because some founders do want to be, I heard my dad joking about it growing up. Maybe someday you can buy me out. There's a feeling, whether or not there's a high monetary value attached to that, there's a feeling of pride that's manifested.
That's a really good point. And that speaks to the point of a lot of incumbents who've built this business. And you can understand that. Don't want to be all of a sudden one day here and next day gone. But find some compromise that can really meet identity needs. It's about self-esteem, and I think that that's got to be part of it. And that's how you do it. as opposed to what you do. What you do is the offer you're gonna make, and how you do it is gonna be as important, if not more important, because you said, they don't need one, he doesn't need one. That's not what's speaking to him. Okay, there, and there, and there,
You
and
need
there.
If you're gonna do that, you need to make sure that the incumbent or the family member is on board with that and make that announcement together to the employees.
Very good.
Otherwise, you'll end up with what we used to call ping pong effect. They don't like the answer you're gonna give them, they're gonna go to your father or your mother. And then there's gonna be chaos in the ranks. So on a boat, you can only have one captain. So once he makes you captain, there should be some type of ceremony that he or she would do, presenting the fact that you are now the new boss, and you didn't say it, the incumbent said it to the crew.
Excellent point, that those ground rules have to be established. Absolutely, yes. Over there.
I just want to go back to your point about the fire drill, which I think is excellent. And it's really for folks and companies that haven't really done anything. I think a next step that follows that is to have the accountant do a tax projection of what would happen. And people talk about taxes and this, but I find that most people don't know what that consequence is.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So fire drill, be as blunt as you can with each other, and what don't we know, what's gonna happen, down to the basics. Right there.
I guess maybe we get the answers to these questions. I feel like there's more questions than there are answers all the time. Because I know questions, honestly.
All right, let's get specific. Give one
All right,
example.
well, like when it talks about taxes, is it possible for family-owned businesses, I have a small business, but I've been in business 40 years, and, I'm gonna exit slowly because I think it's healthy for the business and myself.
Yeah.
But can I pass it off or sell it to 3 children without losing everything to the government? I
Now,
don't know the
that's
answer
where
to
you
that.
get the technical professional advisors, who, it sounds complicated, but there are answers and there are facts that you need to know. But then you and your family then make the decision. You look at the facts and you say,
Where do you go though? Do I go to an accountant or do I go to an attorney? And then what type of an attorney? It seems like attorneys are like doctors today. Some deal with this, some deal with that.
all right, professionals here, would you want to answer the question?
I got a card right here.
Catherine?
I said, we at the Institute too have a number of members of professionals and people who work with us. So I can refer you or help you, and also on our website, there's a listing of all of our legal services we have. So what we need to do is have a conversation about what, if you're really talking about taxes, maybe you need to go to one of our tax accounting firms, and they can all help you. So we have a good housekeeping seal of approval in the sense that we know and have worked with these different attorneys, lawyers, and other people, and I'm very happy with the introductions and connections. We'll give you a number of options, and they're all good, and there's all different ones, and it's a fit for what you want in your business.
And if they're affiliated with IFOB, they really are familiar with family-owned business. Yeah. I think you were next. Awesome. Here, there. Okay, 5 more minutes.
Back to the basic step of the advisory board, is there some sort of interview process that you determine? I mean, if you don't even have, we don't have a plan. Find the right specialist, the right match.
Right, but now don't forget, you'll have a board of advisors is not usually made up of your lawyer or your accountant. They are separate. Board of advisors are people that maybe have been in a similar field, have been through a succession, or you just know them as very wise people who know the community. And so what you would want to do is interview a couple of people that you know. And so that's what, accountant and lawyer are not on the advisory board generally. They can be brought in as needed. Like, we need to understand what's going on with our taxes. We bring in the lawyer to the board of advisory meeting. Now, I'll say that, but there's always exceptions. I have a client right now whose advisory board is made up of their accountant and their lawyer. I'm really after them to get one more person on there. Any comment? Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Let me just see if there's anybody else that has a question or comment. Okay, let's make this the last then.
I was just gonna mention that sometimes we pick people that we like to emulate too. It's also good to have somebody in the advisory board that thinks a little bit differently, somebody maybe outside that.
Great point.
To balance that, the format. If you pick people that think or act just like you, you're not really getting the benefit of a good board.
Right, it's a great point, and that are familiar, same with the board of directors, always get people who are familiar with family-owned business. Very different being on the board of the family business than being on the non-family business board. So they're familiar with that, but they also can speak truth to power. They don't hesitate telling the incumbent, the owner, what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear. Okay, I'm going to leave it to Catherine now. She has evaluations, but I want to thank you all very much.